That's not. If it was an x, that would be an incorrect. What I'm trying to say is that if we're trying to simplify, if this is equal to a function, the function would have to be squared in order for it to produce plus or minus values. Plus or minus values. But the function is not squared. It's just telling you to simplify the value.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you don't have an x squared. X squared can have plus or minus.
Okay, yo, can you guys hear me?
That part's right, but I still
Can you guys hear me?
disagree.
I think it's just about like
-3 to the 2,
Oh.
the square root. The square root just means
my
something to the 1/2 power.
Yo,
I agree
guys,
with what you're saying.
guys. So square root and the square, they cancel each other out, right?
Yeah.
Which is -3 over -3. Okay.
No.
No,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not
Dude,
that's not
that's
necessarily
literally
true.
if
No.
the square is
It isn't.
outside of the
Dude.
square root, that's when they can cancel before you go inside. But if it's
Yeah,
inside,
you have to do the. So it's basically, so if you really want to like write on, if you want to go in Desmos, it's gonna be like the parentheses, and then it's gonna be -3 to the power of 2 to the power of 1/2.
yeah. That
You
is
cannot use Desmos because it's looking in a function mode.
Dude, I'm not.
Take
Okay,
the
you don't
square
even
root
have
and
to.
the plus
Dude,
or minus.
Desmos
But if you use
won't even
Desmos, it's going
graph
to give you
this.
the positive
even
value.
before we get
Desmos
into
won't
the
even graph this.
conversation of like, I
Desmos will
think
just
we
produce
can.
the simplified value. Like you don't even. I'm just showing Desmos because you can like see in real time like how a function looks like. It doesn't. Even, I don't even need you to see the function. All
Yes,
you have.
but when you graph y equals the root of x, it's the restricted inverse of x
Okay,
squared.
and then
So it
okay,
doesn't work.
it does
That's the
work
simplest way to
because
put it. You can't use Desmos because when you graph y equals the square root of x, the true value is plus or minus.
okay.
That's
So then
So you
how do
say
you?
so
Oh
so
Use a
wait, shit,
normal
it's
so so you
imaginary,
calculator,
bro.
say
man.
I'm
You don't
fucking
have to use
stupid.
Desmos.
Dude,
so you
Guys,
say
guys, just
Desmo is
Are you
going
saying in your
to
life.
so you
All right,
say
well,
Desmo is going to graph this?
It's
I'm
not
not
a
saying that
function.
Desmos is going to
It's
graph
just
this.
an
No.
equation. It's not going to graph a single equation, bro.
because it is not a function, you can't use Desmos. Desmos
Okay,
solves
use a normal
specific
calculator.
functions,
Okay,
Plug
okay,
it
so
in your
you
okay,
calculator.
cannot
You'll get
solve
the
okay,
value
okay.
you
using a
Let me
want.
function
let me try to
calculator.
explain the
Bro,
confusion.
guys, it's
Let me just
imaginary.
try like helpfully like this is explains my thought process. So I'm not saying you graph y is equal to square root of x. So my point being, the reason why it's not negative or why it's not the answer is not +1 is because y is equal. Let's say that y is equal to x squared. Let's just say y is equal to x squared, and we're trying to solve for x. Okay. So eventually what you get is when you square root both sides, just to isolate x on both sides, you'll get plus or minus y square root, or like plus or minus y to the, or minus plus or minus 1/2 is equal to x. And now you can get plus or minus y values.
Oh, hell no.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I
So
guess
you understand? Do you understand that this? But when you have like y is equal to x squared, that this produces two kinds of values. But then you don't have. This is not. This is 1/2 of like this. This is 1/2 of it. But we're not solving for x squared. You know what I'm saying? We're just solving for us. We're just simplifying this process. There's no negative. There's no negative sign in front of the square root. So there's no possible way that this can be
You are
positive.
completely overthinking it. You do the
Yeah,
parentheses
bro.
inside first, which is 9. When you
Yeah.
take the square root, it is what value times itself is going to give you this value. Positive
That's
3
not the
times itself
definition of a
equals
square root.
9. Negative 3
You
times
probably don't
itself equals
understand
9.
like the fundamental
It's
like.
plus or minus 3.
Come back up. Come back up.
So do you,
You can come back up.
me?
I'm not talking to you. No, I'm not talking to you. Go ahead. Keep going, guys. You guys can keep going. I was talking to Joseph.
Okay. So let's just like let's say that instead of the y is equal to x squared, let me just frame it in a different way. Let's say this y squared is equal to x. Okay, when you have y squared is equal to x, it's going to produce that curve, that sideways curve that you're emphasizing, that you're the producing of both values. Okay, so you have y is equal to y squared is equal to x, and now you square root both sides, and then that y can produce both x and y values. Can produce both negative and positive values, but we're only focusing on the positive side of y.
Yo, wait, guys, isn't the square root of -9 imaginary? Like a square root
yeah,
of
Wait,
it's
say
-9
that
is
again?
imaginary.
The square root of -9 is imaginary. It's yeah. It's a 3i.
Isn't it like -3i or something like that?
No, it's just 3i. It's just 3i.
Yeah, but that's not
Oh,
relevant, I don't think.
but
It
like
is because you're producing negative values.
3i.
Your
It's
point
like
is
when you
you're
divide a
producing.
number by a negative number, you get a negative number back, right? So if negative, what's negative 3i over negative 3? No, 3i over negative 3. Sorry.
But the
3
argument
negative
that they
3.
were
Which is
having is
negative
like,
I
would it
then.
be 3i or would it be
Yeah,
3i
it's
and
negative I
negative
then.
3i?
Where are
Like
you
that.
guys getting the I? It's not going to be imaginary.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it is, bro.
parentheses,
Square
and then
root
you're going to
of a
go
Square
negative
with
root of
number is
negative
imaginary.
9.
If
It's
you're
the square root
simplifying
of
this,
I times it's I times the square root of 9.
Yes, but
That's
it's
what.
not root negative 9. Negative 3 times itself is
No,
9.
we know. We were just talking about that as a separate
Just a
concept.
side quest.
Yeah, side quests.
I love side quests.
They're my
I went to
favorite.
Chipotle today, boys. I tried to get free food, and they were
That's
just
sick.
like, they're low key geeking out. They wouldn't give me the food, and then started screaming at them, and they kicked me out.
you should have just held the camera at them. Just
Nah, they started recording me. I started screaming at them. They wouldn't give me my
Were
food.
they like yelling like the square root of 9 is plus minus 3? Was that
Where'd you
the
bring up the math? I was talking about Chipotle.
was that the argument? That's the kind of fights I have at Chipotle. I'm not gonna lie.
yes. Yeah.
Would
So
it just
my
be like negative I though? Like,
no. I don't think it's imaginary whatsoever. But
because
There's no
3
imaginary.
yeah,
Wait. John
Definitely
Roberts, can you
imaginary.
explain something to me?
right.
Because I plugged it into Desmos, and you are right. But how come? So take the negative 3. Say that's just like any variable, any number, right?
Mhm.
Anything anything square rooted. Do you agree that's the same as that thing to the 1/2 power?
It is, yeah, to the 1/2 power, yeah.
So why is it not that, since it's squared and a square root, why is it not just that to 2 over 2, which is just that?
Because you have to apply the absolute value before you do that.
Because the square root.
Because you have to apply the absolute value before you put that to the power of 1 divided by 2.
Okay. Yeah.
So you got it?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Wait, so it's 1?
It should be -1.
No,
At -1.
it's not 1.
Dang. Interesting.
Should be plus or minus 1.
No, it's he said it's not 1. It's just -1.
Yeah, it's just -1.
Because
Yeah. Can we get
All
another one?
right. This is crazy. So
We
do you
got
agree
a-
it's not -1?
no.
I mean, do you agree it's not 1?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
I
negative
agree.
1.
it's
I agree.
negative
I agree.
I.
It's not 1. It's -1.
Yeah, it's -1.
It's just negative 1.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand how somebody can square with a positive number and get a negative number. It doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, when you even the people that was talking about a graph, even when you graph the function of a square root, it's never on the negative quadrant. Always in the positive quadrant. You cannot find a negative number in there.
I mean, if it was y squared equals to x, you probably have something. If you probably get like produce a curve that goes sideways.
Yeah, that's not a radical equation. So that's
I
just
mean,
a
you could
second-degree equation.
produce if it was y squared equals that you could produce top and bottom negative values. So you could see negative values that are produced if you're solving for y.
I'm pretty sure y squared equals x just shows the top curve, not the negative.
No, it's
curve.
no. Y squared equals is not a top curve. It's a sideways curve.
Yeah, I agree, but whatever Pokey was saying was completely incorrect. Like, first
All
of all,
that I'm
I
saying
don't
is
even
that-
know. Like, this is American education at its finest.
You got this, guy. Can I go next?
Go ahead.
A square root, the definition of a square root is a number that when multiplied by itself gives you the original value. If you do the parentheses first, you get square root of 9. The square root of 9 is plus or minus 3. If you plug in 3 times 3, you get 9. That's the original value. If you do -3 times -3, you get the original value, which is 9. So 3 divided by -3 is -1. -3 divided by -3 is 1. So it's plus or minus 1. If you guys don't want to accept it,
not.
then
Wait, how
Alright,
can
it's
the
negative
square
one.
root of 9 be -3?
because -3 times -3 is 9.
It's both -1 and 1.
Yes. Exactly. Yes, it is.
It is not. So
Okay.
Absolutely is. It's not. It's not like
It is
you take a
100% plus or minus 1. But you guys do
okay.
that. You guys do whatever you
square
want to
Starting
do.
this.
You
starting
guys, you
under
can
the
use
square
Desmos.
roots. If you start
Let's-
under the square root, it's -3 squared, which is 9. You take the square root of 9, you get 3, plus or minus 3. Excuse me. It's either -1 or 1. You have both solutions right there.
I mean, the square. How can you? Nine is a positive. 9 is a positive
Because
number.
if you take the
Minus.
square
Hold
roots,
on. Hold on. Minus 3 squared is an absolute value. Okay, meaning it is a positive number. So how can you square root a positive number and get a negative number?
how can you square root a
And by the
positive
way,
number and get a
by
negative
the way,
number?
do you know the difference between a constant and a variable?
Yes.
Okay, what's the difference?
A variable varies, and a constant is a constant.
Okay, in this
Lord,
expression, in this expression right here, where is your variable? What's supposed to change?
I think you're misinterpreting what the question is. That's what I think is happening
I
right
mean,
now.
I'm just explaining to you
No, but
how
I'm
you
telling
can
you,
come
like,
back to your
the
reasoning.
square root
So I
of
asked you the
9
question:
is plus or
what
minus
is
3. It's not going to be
what?
just one single number. The square root of any
What?
number, except for some exceptions, of course, is typically either negative or positive of the number that's squared.
Okay, if it's either positive or negative, it means there's a variable, something that can change.
No,
In this
no.
expression, listen to me. In this expression here, what can change? What is your variable that can change?
There's no variable here. It's just numbers.
Exactly. So you can only have one solution,
No,
one value.
Yeah,
You can
because
only
bro.
have
no,
one
because the
value.
square root is an
Listen,
Listen to the guy,
operation.
bro.
The
listen.
square root is an
You
Guys,
can
let's stick to
operation.
him.
Oh, he's
you
done.
can only have one value for that. You cannot
No,
have two.
Wait,
it's
so
a square root is an operation. The square root of
Okay.
9 is not by itself a number. You need to understand
Okay.
that. The square root of 9
So
is not just a single number. It's
so
it's an
so
operation being done on a number. Or well,
okay. So you cannot have two values when you're just simplifying it. So what I'm trying to tell you is what you're confusing is that is when you have x squared is equal, let's say 9, right?
okay.
Now the square root of x squared equals plus or minus the square root of 9. It's not the square root that's plus or minus, it's x, because x is the variable that can change. That's why x is plus or minus the square root of 9. Okay, because it doesn't matter if x is positive or negative, then it's going to be squared. Over here, you already know the value of x, which is a constant that cannot change. And when you square that constant, it becomes a positive number. And now when you square root that positive number, it gives you a positive number. It cannot give you a negative number. That's basically what I'm trying to explain to you.
Okay, but if you square a
Can you tell my
negative
boy
number,
Lance?
you also get a positive number.
you get an imaginary number.
No, what? If you square a negative number, you get a positive number. A
You
positive.
need
If you
square
square a
root.
negative real
Okay,
number, I'll say.
okay,
I'll
but
say.
here's what I think. So we take 3 to the power of 1. We can say that 1 equals 2 over 2. So we can say that 3 to the power of 1 equals 3 to the power of 2 over 2. If we split those operations up, now you have 3 squared, and then you take the square root of that. So you're telling me that 3 squared and the square root of that equals plus or minus 3?
Say that one more time. I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. Sorry.
So 3 to the 1, and then 1 equals 2 over 2. Okay? So 3 to the power of 1 equals 3 to the power of 2 over 2. And then now you take 3 squared, and you square root that. That's still the same thing.
Sorry, I got disconnected.
Yeah, that is the same thing. Yes.
So the square root of 3
Okay, well.
squared
But can
equals
you please
plus or
accept
minus 3.
Lance?
The square root of 3 squared.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The square root of 3 squared is 3 plus or minus 3. Oh, yeah.
Can you add Lance Lamb to the live, please?
Oh no, I'm gone.
Oh, yeah.
Can you add Lance Lamb to the live, please?